Hello fellow humans and welcome to another episode of your replays, and we start off with a crate bar. Now, how do you get into my videos? Very simple, join my Discord server, link to that in the channel description, then get a very good game, post it there, and then with a bit of luck, you'll be featured on the channel. So, we start off with the KPZ-50T. Why? Because it's a good tank, not because it's a good value. Now, how do you play a medium tank? Obviously, the easiest way to do that is to obviously first of all go to the medium side. Any medium tank that goes to the city is immediately doing something wrong. Now, if you have an extreme amount of skill, you might be able to compensate for playing wrong. However, you're still doing it wrong because, I mean, no tank technically belongs into a city, because what is worse than having a large chunk of metal in a place that you can't effectively control? Because, you know, RPGs and stuff. Now, luckily, there are no RPGs in Blitz. However, you still should not go cities because every house is a 90-degree angle, which means whoever peaks loses, which is not great. Now, who also should lose is the 183, and it's lovely to see. That's obviously not great to get shot at, and the 183 is doing a pretty good job here of pushing Nobby out of the firing line of that Progetto right there, and that's a good thing because Progetto obviously has 3 shells. Now, what you want to do is you don't want to brawl with heavies unless you can get a massive advantage on them, and the 183 is mad. I love seeing that. The Progetto's now one shot, so very easy to push him and take him out. And obviously, the main thing you always want to do is you only take fights that you can win. You never ever take a fight that you can't win. That is the worst thing you can do, right? If I see this so many times, like people that have 500 hit points just charge at me while I'm full HP. It does not make any sense. It is completely and utterly dumb. Now, yes, you may think that you're a better player. However, I, as well, as a pretty solid player, I never take fights that I can't win, right? Because the thing is, if you are not sure that you can win, you're probably not gonna win. You might, but it's very unlikely. Now, the situation of this, you're playing against an E100. You can see that E100 is stock. Now, he's not the brightest, and you can reasonably side-scrape in a vehicle like this. So, this is the match that can be very easily won. Now, it's not just about hit points on the tank, it's also about reading the player, and that's always a thing, right? If you understand how intelligent your enemy is, then you can adapt to that. And that's very important, especially as a medium tank player, because if you can spot a bad heavy, then you will figure out that they're a lot easier to beat, and then you could play a lot more loosely, I guess, where if you play against a very, very strong heavy player, you can't really do things like that. And again, all you gotta do in a medium is read the team, read the enemy, learn that. It's gonna take a while, right? You're never gonna get good at the game by watching videos. Just like you're never gonna get good at most skills by simply watching videos. You still have to do it in real life as well and try it out. That's the most important thing, right? Because if you just watch 3 videos and then think that you're a super unicum, that's not going to work, unfortunately. It would be nice if it did, but it unfortunately does not. What does work, though, is the TVP, which is being spammed a lot in raiding battles. Don't quite understand why, but sure. And this vehicle is more difficult to play than even a KPZ-50, which is already not too easy. Now, the KPZ-50 is a horrible value to get. This thing is available for free, so that's very nice. Now, what you have to watch out with this thing, you have to play even more careful, even more passively, because again, in a lot of cases, 20-second reload, the enemy can shoot 3-4 times, and that is not a fight that you want to take. You don't want to be in a situation where the enemy can push you and you're reloading for 20 seconds. And like this, you have 4 shells. You can kill them with 3 shells, and Deathcore Kid, who's playing the TVP in this game, just did. So you always want to have that unfair advantage, especially in mediums. Now, in a heavy tank, it's easier to compensate for a direct 1v1 with more armor, right? You can angle, you can bounce. So if you have a better player against you, or someone that has higher hit points, it's a lot easier to compensate for that on a heavy tank. Also because heavy tanks tend to have higher alpha damage, which means you have to peak less. But on a medium, you have to think about it a bit more. Now, there is a 60 TP in a bush, which immediately tells us that this player is not the brightest in the shed. So, you know, you might have that happen. That's always great, right? This is about the best thing that can ever happen to you, to just ammo rack a guy like that. And a 60 TP, it blows up if you hit it in the right spots, obviously, which is very nice. And that's simply how this works, right? You don't want to be the main focus of the enemy team, because every time you get shot, you can only trade 1-for-1, but to get really good, you have to trade 2v1, 3v1, 4v1, right? If you do take 1,000 damage, but you deal 4,000, that makes it a lot more likely that you can actually win that game. What also makes it more likely is an AFK T95, who's still AFK, and Deathcore Kid just ignores him, because, I mean, you can at that point, and pumps another couple of shells into the mouse, and that is 7k damage right there. And it wasn't really very much in the middle, but if you play around your team, which is pretty much what every Super Unicum does, and if anyone tells you otherwise, they're probably lying, because the way of playing Super Unicum is to play around your team, to use your team to get yourself better. Now, that only works if you're good enough, so be aware of that, right? Because if you do that, when you're not good enough to read the team and all that kind of stuff, and you can't do 7k damage, then it's going to backfire really, really badly. So at the beginning of your journey, you might want to play with your team, stay there. However, obviously, always go to the medium side as well. You don't want to go in the heavy, you don't want to get a city, you don't want to do this. You don't want to go into this side of the map. Now, I get, like, the video is called mediums, but why is there a 50B here? Well, it's 20 kilograms lighter than an E50M, so it counts. And Jova here is playing this thing in the city of Yamato. Now, again, with an autoloader like this, you can get shots on target a lot easier than with a single shotgun. However, you're a lot bigger at risk once you're out of shells. So that's the compromise that I have to make. Obviously, I would always recommend starting off with a single shotgun, just like we did in this video. And also, we're just going to skip the reloads here because it just sits behind the gun. So, that's all you got to do. Look at that. You always focus on someone else, and you unload. That is how you want to do that. If you peek, you want your enemy to look at your teammate. If your teammate peeks, your teammate wants the enemy to look at you. That's how that works. And that's the easiest way to simply fool someone. Now, it works obviously a lot better if you have a coordinated team, which is very rare. However, overall, think about what you're doing. And obviously, these are amazing games, so thank you very much for sending them in. Really fantastic. And I keep repeating myself a lot in these videos because it's pretty much always the same thing that's happening, right? Obviously, he's down to 200 HP. However, most of the time, you get damage without getting damaged. That is the secret sauce to Blitz. Shoot without getting shot. That is all that is to Blitz.